right, hello everyone. Welcome to today's Women Bike webinar. My name is Liz Murphy and I am the Communications Manager here at the League of American Bicyclists. Today we are taking an advocacy deep dive with Nellie Pearson, who is the Washington Area Bicyclist Association's Outreach Coordinator and the head of WABA's Women in Bicycles program. Also earlier this month, Nellie was dubbed the Advocate of the Year as part of the Alliance for Biking and Walking's Advocacy Award. So congrats again, Nellie. We're really happy that you are joining us. And today, Nellie is going to talk a little bit more about WABA's new Women in Bicycles Toolkit, which is basically a how-to guide to building a women's bicycling initiative as stellar as Women in Bicycles in your community. So this webinar is basically a sneak peek to that toolkit, and I can attest I got my own sneak peek earlier this week that it's full of great stuff, so you're in for a treat. Before we launch into Nellie's portion of today's presentation, I wanted to just talk a little bit more about the League's Women Bike program. It launched in 2012, and it aims to change the face of bicycling by getting more women on bikes and participating as riders, advocates, and leaders to create strong communities and celebrate the joy of riding a bike. And the program is also coming off of a really successful National Women's Bicycling Forum here in DC just last month, and I hope some of you were able to attend and connect with everyone and listen to a lot of the great speakers we had. And just before I kick it off over to Nellie, I wanted to give a quick and hearty thank you to our 2014 Women Bike sponsors. Those include VeloJoy, New Belgium Brewing, Live Giant, Fuji, Specialized Women, Gail Copus Span and Jim Span, Po Campo, Momentum Magazine, the California Electric Bicycle Association, and also a big shout out and thank you to our 2014 Women's Forum sponsors, NBDA and Darrow. So just as a quick programming note, before I hand it off to Nellie, we'll have about 10 or 15 minutes of Q&A at the end of the presentation, but feel free to type in your questions into the question box in the control panel as we go along, and we look forward to hearing more. So Nellie, kick it off to you.
Thanks for the introduction, Liz, and thanks for joining us, everyone, this afternoon. It's a sunny day over here in DC, and I hope it's sunny where you're at. I see over 46 people are on the call, which is so great, and some names that I recognize. So thank you so much for joining us. As Liz mentioned, I have the privilege of working at an organization in a big metro area, and what we're really working on right now is diversifying the population of bicyclists in the DC region and the surrounding counties. So I really appreciate the ability to talk to you about what I've done and what I've learned, because the work that we do will be exponentially grown by work that you're doing in your communities around the country, because we're all in this movement together. So today my objectives are to tell our story. We have a pretty good story, and I like the opportunity to tell it and describe the nuts and bolts of how the components of our program work together, because from the outside it does look like there's a lot going on. So I hope to give a more clear picture of how it all works. I've encountered some struggles and certainly some successes along the way. I want you all to take notes, and then finally I want you to take those notes and my recommendations. I'm going to give you a big thumbs up for the work that you're doing, and I hope to continue hearing stories like ours continue to pop up around the country. It's incredible what has happened in such a short amount of time. But first, definitely deserve I definitely owe quite a bit of credit where credit is due. As Liz mentioned, I was Bike Advocate of the Year, which is so honored. So I feel so honored for that. But really, the efforts that I'm doing it feels like a family effort. Here you see my coworkers at the Washington Area Bicyclist Association. I have the strongest support system here in DC. We have the strongest support system with our relationship with the league, in that we were one of their grant recipients for the program this year. And then with Bike DC, the hashtag, we have such a good bike community in DC, and this program wouldn't have worked if we didn't have all of the supporters that we have now come out of the woodwork. So while I'm the coordinator, this is a larger effort that's really growing because of the people who are involved. So with that, can you all hear me? Liz, do you think, is my mic good? We're good? Okay, she's probably muted. With that, I want to tell you our success story.
Yeah, no, you're good.
So this photo here is taken of Jessie Cohn. Okay, thank you, thank you. This is Jessie Cohn. I'm sure that you've seen this photo if you've been following our story. Back in 2011, she came in, interned for WABA, and said, listen, I want to start a conversation. So she hosted a public forum that initiated a dialogue that said, hey, less women are riding. We got feedback on and speculated on why that was the case. And most importantly, we acknowledged that it was an issue that WABA should work on. So the forum was the starting point for all of our work. And that came about from conversations that we were having. I know I met with so many women beforehand, and Jessie and I just kind of traveled around the region talking to people who wanted to get involved and what their thoughts and recommendations were. So it really came about this bike think tank. We got some press from that. It was really nice to hear that it was publicly acknowledged that the women's issue in bicycling is a regional issue, and that allowed us to pilot a really small version of the program that we're running now. That allowed us to go to our board and ask permission to take on this project, to test the waters with our membership and see if they would support something like this. And it really just allowed us to test out some ideas during a pilot program. Then it was a year and a half or so of planning and fundraising to get our model locked down. And then just this past year, we've just marked our year anniversary when we started the program. So all of that, as you see here, it took over 3 years. It's been a while in the making. But my hope today is to leave you feeling encouraged that this project in your community could take could not take as long. I hope that with some of the things that we've tried out and some of the successes that we've learned, you could put something together really quickly. With that, some may be familiar with our role models concept, and that's the fundamental aspect of the program, and that's saying, okay, we have a group of women in DC who already bike. In DC, something like less than 24% of bicyclists on the road are female. How can we work with that 24% of women to inspire the women in their networks to consider biking? So the role model component came of this idea that mentorship and skill sharing and peer-to-peer information sharing is really how people come to bicycling. Like when I step back and think about my path to biking, I can point to 2 or 3 people who got me to where I am today, who went out to the bike shop with me, who rode on rides with me, who gave me critical feedback when I was doing silly things on my bike, like telling me not to run stop signs and stoplights, or telling me where on the road I should be biking. And then just generally having a group of supportive people around that invite you out to rides and let you know about deals that are going online and someone to answer your questions. So when we sat around and thought about how individuals become immersed in biking, it all starts with a friend or a mentor. So we figured, okay, we're going to reach out to our 24%, the women in DC who already bike, and then we're going to ask them to mentor women in their communities. So you see here all of these M's. Those are their mentees. And I'm sorry, this is a doodle that I put together. I'm such a visual person, so I figured that this would help for people like me. If this doesn't help for you, I apologize. But this is really how everything fits together. So the role models host meetups, and that's where they invite their mentees in to have an initial conversation about biking. The meetup is like a bike dinner party. It's so fun. It's sponsored by Chipotle, so we come in. There are usually 10 to 15 women around the table, and sometimes there are children around the table. Sometimes we're in a church. Sometimes we're in a park. Often we've been in the WABA office using uh, our own building facilities. And then we worked through the Women in Bicycles workbook, which if you haven't seen already, you can find on our website. It's a central document that has, we've called it the ins and outs of urban biking. It takes all of the information out there that would help you become a bicyclist, a safe bicyclist, and one that one that sorry, it's a workbook that really does a good job at busting myths. So we sit down with women around the table and host these meetups. This year we had 10 role models, and each role model probably had 10 to 15 women. And then you can see after the meetup, we encourage people to go to the events that are existing within the program. And we have coffee clubs that happen once a week. I know in Philadelphia they just started doing Women in Bicycles coffee clubs. It's really low maintenance. The expenses are very minimal. It's just my time and going to them. And women go, we meet up at a nearby cafe, we drink coffee before work. It's something that most folks would already be doing before their workday, and that's talking about an average 9 to 5 workday. So it's a really good thing to plug into something that people are already doing in their schedules. We also host workshops. That's where we really get into one idea or issue or concept and spend an hour or two figuring out and sharing information. So that could be carrying things by bike, biking year-round, and being prepared for different weather. We had a really successful workshop with a local group here in DC called CAST, the Collective Action for Safe Spaces, where we hosted a interactive workshop on street harassment, and this program gives WABA the ability to work on issues like street harassment and collaborate with partners like CAS in a way that we would not have been able to before. Other events we have are rides, so meeting up monthly at a park, going for a ride, ending and getting donuts or coffee or treats or lunch, and then hanging out for a bit. It's really simple. We try and accommodate different skill levels on our rides. So this year we've dubbed 2 parts of a ride. You can either be in the leisure crowd. Make sure that if you come to an event, you're going to feel welcome no matter your experience level. Then we have socials, and this has been a new development in the program. We're trying to encourage participation at local advocacy meetings. So we figured, hey, how do you get people out? You bring them out to get food, and you give them a good time. So we'll meet up before a local advocacy meeting and have some food and maybe beverages at a local bar, and then head to the meeting. It's been pretty fun. And then fundraisers. We had a big dance party about 3 weeks ago. So just one-off events that raise money. We've also had groups in the DC area, actually individuals who support the program, who coordinate events that fundraise for our program. So we had a Sadie Hawkins Alley Cat race, which raised us $2,000, or the Haynes Point 100, where people ride a century around this loop in DC, and that raised around $5,000. So as you can see down at the bottom, what is crucial is having people in the area that support the work that we're doing, and that's helping promote at events, whether they're helping lead the Lycra group at a ride, or whether they're helping me in bringing burritos to an event. Ideas and brainstorming, like I'll get emails from someone saying like, hey, have you started working on a Mother's Day ride yet? I think that would be a great idea. So I do feel like I'm the coordinator, but I have 200 people on staff willing to help me out or willing to take on projects. Other miscellaneous tasks that I do down here, grant reporting, tracking events, you see the point, and then communications. So how is information and how is information distributed and how are we in touch with people? The most central place where people come to learn about the program and interact with participants is our Facebook forum. It's a free, low-maintenance place where people are already interacting every single day. Of course, there are people who are not Facebook people, which is why we run a website, we do a weekly blog, and then to some degree we're on social media. So because we're working out of an advocacy group, WABA will help draw attention to report on successes or promote our events through WABA's own social media. We also run posters around the city, and then a big one, I think the most important aspect of promotion is word of mouth. Getting people to refer a friend to the group is really the model that we're working on, and it's, we are built, and that's how the community that we're working in has become so friendly and supportive. And that's all of our events, my goal is that they're laid back, they're friendly. We make sure that everyone is trying to learn everyone's names, that we're all getting to know one another, that we realize, like, hey, you're in my neighborhood, we should hang out sometime. And that they're informative. We're bringing people together, and I may facilitate a conversation about different gear to use during the rain, and that conversation could go on for 2 hours just because people have learned so much along the way, and want to share those little tips and tricks with people in the group. But a big aspect, or these things don't happen. This culture doesn't happen if the events aren't well coordinated. So I try to do my best. Sometimes I show up late, like this morning's coffee club, because I couldn't find my wallet. But fortunately, because people know about these events, they go to the coffee clubs every week. This has already become something where I'm kind of stepping back. Like I don't have to show up and be at the coffee club the whole time because this is already integrated in people's schedules, and they feel part of the group enough to help support and run it on their own. So the big, and I mentioned this, the fundamental and the foundation aspect of this program is mentorship and peer-to-peer skill sharing. So I'd like to spend some time talking about how the mentorship component works. It looks like I'm already 8 minutes behind schedule, so I'm going to have to shorten up some of my descriptions right now. I'm sorry about that. So what I didn't mention, but Liz hinted at, is this is a sneak peek at our Women in Bicycles Toolkit. Which I just want to give you even bike program and assigned a cost with them, how many hours it took to generate the program stickers, how much let's see, lessons that I learned. Like, I recommend a website to go and buy your button maker from, and that gets all the way, or lessons learned from biking workshops. So that will be made available in the next 2 days, and we'll make sure that if you've set a PDF of it.
Hey Nellie.
Yeah.
Your audio is going a little bit in and out at points. Do you mind just double checking the sound? And if we run into a lot of trouble, maybe you can call in.
Okay. Thanks for letting me know. Please let me know. How does that sound?
You sound good.
Is that better?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So jumping back, so getting down into how mentorship works through our program. Honestly, it's pretty informal. We want it to be something where you don't have strict obligations, you don't feel committed as a mentee or as a mentor. It's really, we want to be able to let people know, let women know that there's a place that they can go to get more information, and give them an introduction to the work that we're doing. But it can be what people make of it. So from the role model perspective, we recruited role models through WABA's channels and from WABA's membership. So we sent out a volunteer or a sign-up call saying, hey, if you want to dedicate some time this spring season, we want you to be a part of our program. Here's how it's going to work. We'd expect you to invite women in your lives, whether they're family, friends, colleagues, maybe they're your friends' spouses, maybe it's your mail lady. Invite them to be mentored. You know, often as a bicyclist, I hear everywhere I go, oh, you biked into work today? Like, it's raining outside. How do you do that? You know, we all have these people around our lives that are intrigued by what we're doing, and the mentorship components gives me as an individual a way to say, oh, well, you're interested. How would you feel about being mentored? Do you want to come to you want to come to a meetup and learn more? So it gives people a way to really follow up on conversations that they've had with friends around them and invite them to take their interest in biking one more step. So our expectations are you host a meetup, and that's what I mentioned earlier. It's a bike dinner party, more or less. And the way that we ensure quality control and make sure that the mentors, the role models are, you know, promoting good biking behavior and respectful behavior and creating an environment that is welcoming is we have trainings. This year we will be doing monthly trainings for our role models. So we'll put a call out and anyone can be a role model this year. Last year we kept it to 10, but this year we're changing it so anyone can be a role model who's a woman, and they'd attend a monthly training, and then I'd make sure that they had the tools to coordinate their meetup. Now, from the mentee's perspective, you'd get an email invite, you'd get however the mentor wants to go about it. It's usually through email or as from a Facebook event invite. Make sure that the timing works for the bike dinner party or the meetup. And at the meetup, as I mentioned, we go through the workbook. We definitely reserve a big chunk of time to asking those burning questions like, well, what do I do when I get to my office and I'm covered in sweat from head to toe? We make sure to reserve as much time as possible to work through questions. And then we provide next steps. So we encourage the role models to follow up, offer assistance in going to bike shops, encourage the gals to go and try out their commute to work on the weekends, or maybe just try out a local trail. We had one role model, her name is Liz Willis in Arlington. She created a series of bike rides for her mentees, and all of her mentees were gals who go to her church. And so at each bike ride, they worked on another skill, and they had 4 or 5 in the summer, all leading up to their church's fall bike ride. So she had a very clear outcome or objective she wanted to achieve, and she was very strategic about it. Sorry for the noise. And then, so our outcomes are the mentee, maybe they bike every day, or maybe we never hear from them again. We built this to be pretty informal, and it so completely varies, but from what we've learned, that's okay, because we just mostly want to make sure that these women have a place to go if they're looking for a community around biking and looking for skills and information as a new bicyclist. Sorry for that noise in the background. I'm also our door answerer. That brings us to struggles. So I have listed quite a bunch, as you can see. I don't know if we're going to have time to go through all the struggles, but let's begin. So branding. I think it's really important for you to create a unique image or a branding or an image or logo identified with your program. And we had issues from appreciation of the hearts. We called it the Great Heart Debate of 2013. Some people loved it, some people hated it, but ultimately it's won the hearts and minds of our participants. So make sure you have an image that achieves what you want. Women Bike Philly, they have a logo of a bike, they have gender neutral colors, it's really nice. We Bike NYC, they have different depictions of women riding different bikes, all in a consistent logo, and there are just so many good ideas out there, but ultimately I want to say that having an image or affiliation, a branding affiliation with your program is really important. Research, that's a vague way of saying that we caught some flack from our members and about using member resources for a program that was only available to women. So what was helpful for us was to have the research that backed why this program is important, and that's knowing the gender breakdown of DC and the surrounding counties, and it's being able to articulate the importance of a program like this and being able to articulate that on the spot, and being able to convey that the person who has issues is ultimately benefiting from programs like this, even if they're not directly benefiting from it, because we all benefit as more and more and more people come to biking, and it's targeted initiatives like this that are allowing demographics a place to come into a movement that has typically been male dominated. The next bullet, the language of gender, I've struggled with this, and that's talking about how to use language that's respectful and very clearly communicates that our program is open to those who identify as women. Trans women, women maybe genderqueer. We want to make sure that we are not alienating more people, and furthering discrimination through our program. So the expression that we've started to use is, come to our events if you identify as a woman. I think that keeps it open to interpretation, but very clearly describes our intent that this is a women's space, a women-identified space. Event scheduling. Let's see, I'm checking on my time. So we learned that it's important to keep events consistent. We're doing a monthly workshop and a monthly ride because I was organizing them willy-nilly, and that just was hard for participants and hard for me. So having our workshops the second Sunday of the month and our rides the last Sunday of the month, it's just something that rolls off the tongue and people have booked in their calendar. They don't even need to check out our website. So we feel like that will improve attendee turnout, and though we do need to recognize that seasonal participation will change. Here we had a really cold winter. There was a lot of snow. It's hard to get people out on bikes, especially when our target audience is people who are new to biking. It's hard to get folks out when the weather is cruddy or really hot like it gets in DC. Let's see, I'm going to spend the rest of this slide talking about what's most important, and that's diversity. So this first year of the program, while we had a really high participation rate, in one year we generated the attendance or the participation of 1,300 people, 1,300 women on our Facebook page. Large majority of those women are young, white, urban professionals without children. So this year, my goal is to continue developing relationships that work to bring in women of color, women who have children, women that are geographically diverse. We're pretty concentrated right now in the heart of DC, and I'll do that by making sure to partner with groups at events and when we recruit role models to really make sure we have different populations represented. It was really nice. Last year we had a woman who wanted her role model group to be specifically for gender non-conforming queer women, and that you don't get much more targeted than that. It was so good to have that space set aside for that demographic. So that will be my I need to really work quite hard on that, because seeing the the demographic makeup of our group this year definitely inspires a greater need for diversity. Just the fact that we've gotten so much attention from the program, it's clearly working. Our model is innovative. The mentorship component, while it may not be the first time that mentorship is used in the world, it's one of the first programs that revolve around biking to use mentorship. I like to tell people that I've taken the Mary Kay model and applied it to biking, that you have one woman who represents a social network, and that's WABA's contact with that social network, is the role model. So that model is effective and it's affordable. The follow-up from the mentors, while it varies, it's still forming relationships among people with a clear goal of getting them to think about biking more. The community aspect, we've gotten so much good feedback from people on the Facebook forum about how it's one of the first places in DC where they've felt like they could immediately come and find friends. We have so many good conversations that happen on the Facebook forum that range from, like, hey, we have this bike ride coming up, I hope that you all join us, to hey, I just got in a bike crash and I would love some recommendations on my child seat. I don't really want to go to any of the shops nearby, but I would love your recommendations. As I mentioned before, the culture, we were really deliberate in creating a certain culture at all of our events, and that's one that's laid back and familiar and informal, but focuses on information. So I will come to one of the coffee clubs with the goal of talking about a certain topic and facilitating a conversation. Getting into recommendations in the time that I have left, it's 2:34. So once you take a look at our toolkit, I think you'll get a better sense of concretely how the resources for the program are used, and that's my time as the coordinator, and that's our budget, which was around $30,000. But trust me, you do not need a full-time coordinator, and you do not need a budget of $30,000 to create a program to get more women on bikes. I want to make sure to stress that. There are so many smart, effective, and time and money efficient approaches that you can take starting tomorrow. So starting in approach C, if you are an individual and you are pioneering this project, sorry, there are some really concise, not concise, what do I want to say? There are some, there are projects that you can take on that you could complete in a couple weeks. So the forum, panel, or think tank, that's the forum that we held. It took about 3 weeks of coordination time for one person, and the only cost was, I think, refreshments. We worked with a library and had a library room, but honestly, you could meet with a bunch of gals at a local cafe and talk through your objectives and write a blog post and get that circulated around, and you could get the same outcomes that we did through our panel. Creating a Facebook group, I think, is something that should exist in every community around the United States. A women-specific biking Facebook group. We're seeing them pop up around all around the country already, and they're free. It's where people already are. It's where they're communicating and sharing ideas and finding ways to get together and connect. So the Facebook forum for us has been so important. It's a closed group. You have to be accepted to join the group, and that's so that I can filter who joins. We got a lot of spammers that try to join. So make sure it's a closed group, and then maybe you put together a monthly social event or a quarterly social event like a bike ride. I think Jess Columbus in Ohio has done something remarkable with her two heels and wheels ride. They get together, and it started out really small, but now they see around 100 women once a month for their ride, and that's all one person doing this kind of work. Um, I think that at this point, taking a look at our toolkit is going to answer many questions, but I'm really looking forward to hearing all the questions that you have, and I'm happy to go back and spend some time working through the slides that I've already gone through. So Liz, do you mind if we spend more time doing question and answer and hop into that at this point?
Absolutely, that sounds great.
Great.
So, like I said earlier, feel free to type in your questions into the question box, and I will try and pitch those to Nellie as they come in. We do have one question from early on that is a request to look back at an earlier slide. Lisa's wondering, what were the 2 ride levels that you mentioned after you were talking about coffee clubs? The audio blinked out at that moment.
Okay. Yeah, actually, we this is a new aspect of our rides, making sure that we have two experience levels, to making the rides accessible for 2 different experience levels. So we're going to have a Lycra group and a leisure group, and saying those things with mostly humor, with the Lycra crowd. I think we're going to, it depends on the captain and who comes out to lead, but making sure that there's a ride for the women who want to come and do a workout between, the 12 mile per hour and 14 mile per hour range, that come out on road bikes and in spandex. And then at that same ride, make sure that there's the leisure ride. That's the social pace, the no gal left behind, making sure that we're going the speed of the slowest rider. And I think that way it will be good at bringing 2 groups together that don't normally interact at one single group ride. So we'll start out with or this is what we have done. We start out with a skill share, where we focus on one concept. For example, we spend like 20 minutes talking about derailers at one of our rides. We all get together, we start out with that skill share. We go on our rides, we part ways, and then come back and, whether we're meeting up in the park for a picnic or at a cafe for treats, find a way to all come together at the same place at the end. Does that answer your question? I don't know if we're going to have real-time responses.
Yeah, I think that sounded good to me, Nellie. We have a couple more questions coming in, so that's great. Feel free to, like I said, keep adding them in. We have a good chunk for Q&A, so that's great. We have a question from Carol. How do you address insurance for the meetup rides?
So to be clear, the meetups are the bike dinner parties. There's no on-bike portion at the meetups. For the rides, this is one of many benefits of working through a nonprofit and an existing bike advocacy organization, is all of our events are insured in the first place because WABA has insurance for all of our events. So I bring a waiver, get people to sign, and that's really convenient for me. I do know that the league has a ride club insurance program where you can buy insurance for your rides at I think it's I don't think it's that expensive, and maybe Liz, you probably know more about this. But there are ways of insuring your group rides at a low, affordable price.
Yeah, the league does offer insurance for our member clubs, I believe, but I'll be doing a recap blog and be sure to include that information,
Nice.
Carol and the rest, if you're interested in looking further into that. So Nellie, on the last question, Lisa says you answered the question perfectly. Thank you. So we're good there. A great question.
Good.
Yeah, great question here from Galen. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Regarding spreading the word to let folks know about women on bicycles or women bike initiatives similar to that, what challenges and successes have you encountered? How effective was word of mouth versus digital innovation versus traditional media? And also, can you a few questions in here. Can you tell us about your word of mouth tactics, and have you branched out into multiple languages?
Ooh, such a good question. Thank you. Hold on, let me scribble down some notes really fast.
Sure. And I'm happy to sort of repeat as you go along if that helps.
Great. Okay, so our word of mouth tactics. We got this idea from We Bike NYC. They printed 500 stickers with their information on the back, the part that you peel off, and it's a cute little sticker to put on your bike or your helmet or your water bottle, and I use those like business cards. So I bring a stack of stickers to all of our events. People secretly or not so secretly love stickers, so they usually go pretty quickly. And I ask them, hey, carry around some stickers with you when you're on your bike, and maybe you're having a conversation in the bike lane with the gal, like hand over a sticker. So it's putting the promotion tools into the participants' hands. So stickers are a good way of doing that. I mentioned posters. We just have these little dinky posters that I made in Microsoft Word. I bring those around with me in my bag everywhere I go and leave them around town. I dropped off a bunch this morning at our coffee club and asked all the participants to post them in their work. So I could be doing much more with postering, and in fact, I'd like to have a dedicated night, like a volunteer night for the program where we all go out as a group and we have some kind of poster competition where we see how many we can hang. But those have been our word of mouth tactics. I guess I generally say how individuals are bringing and inviting people to participate. Word of mouth. The Facebook group is a good way to do that because once someone joins, they can invite their friends to join. It's just as simple as adding their name into a column. So that's a really easy way to continue promoting what we're doing. And getting into digital, the Facebook forum is obviously a good one. I tried and should continue trying I tried to really get into Instagram, but then that just kind of fell off. Instagram is a really easy way to document what's going on at events and give a face of what we're doing. And we kept the hashtag Women Bike DC, so that means that it's not just me; it's participatory if other people catch on and contribute. But I mean, because I haven't been taking any pictures at all. That's fallen off. Twitter, I have not created a Women in Bicycles Twitter handle, though I do recommend that. We circulate an e-newsletter once or twice a month, and that goes to our email list. That's a good way of putting together all of our calendar events. So none of this stuff is new. I'd say the most effective, you asked that question, which of our outreach mechanisms are most effective? I'd like to think that word of mouth is the most efficient and most effective and most inherent part of our program. We want people to come to this group through friends. And something I'd like to reiterate and stress is that as a bike advocacy organization, the people who we're talking to as an organization are folks who have already figured out how biking works in their lives. So we don't have relationships with people who don't bike. This program is a way to tap into the networks of our existing supporters and ask them to bring in their friends. So I think word of mouth is where we devote most of our energy. Your third question about language, so important, especially in regards to my biggest struggle with diversity and diversifying the program. We have not published any of our promotion materials or educational materials in anything but English. At the Women Bike Forum this year, Liz from We Bike NYC presented and made a really strong, solid case on the importance of putting all of our materials in languages that you would like to invite into the program. And that's an obvious first and easy step, but we haven't done that.
Okay. So Nellie, we have another question here from Heather, which seems like a pretty good problem to have. How do you integrate several existing women's bike interest groups to sort of create an initiative in a more targeted way?
Mm, Such a good question, Heather, and so relevant. This Saturday, I'm attempting to do something um, that we haven't done before, and that I think well, I'm hoping will be the answer to your question. So this weekend, I've invited stakeholders from all different types of groups around DC, bike shop owners and mechanics, women who coordinate clubs or group rides or teams, um, women like Veronica Davis from Black Women Bike DC, or the gals who coordinate the respective critical mass groups here. There are all of these different initiatives taking off around the city, and I'm inviting them all to come together to identify, well, first and foremost, to make sure that everyone knows what's going on and the faces attached to the different initiatives and contact information. So like a basic networking event, I think is fundamental. And then secondly, to to answer the question that you just asked, it's how can we work together and create a dedicated initiative. My ask of the women who attend this Saturday is to pick to pick one of the events that I'm running and help me run it. So it could be a critical mass workshop with women and bicycles, and we talk about family biking gear. Um, or and secondly, I'm going to ask them to all participate, for every one of those groups to participate in one group ride at one time, so that we can have a large visible presence at a group ride. And for us this year, that's going to be the Cyclo-Femme ride. Um, and then thirdly, I'm going to ask those gals to each have a representative be one of our Women in Bicycles role model. So those are all self-serving for the Women in Bicycles program. It I don't think I answered your question about how to initiate or start a collaborative project, but I think just starting a conversation and having that question answered with that group of people. So it's not you, I mean, it's not you setting the course of the group, but allowing that to be a course that the group sets itself.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Um,
Heather.
we've gotten a couple questions about the slides and a recording of this. I just want to let everyone know that we'll be able to post Nellie's slides and the video recording of this webinar probably sometime tomorrow on the League's blog. And I'll be happy to share all of that, obviously, with WABA too. So you can either ask me or Nellie for this information afterward if you're not able to find it on the League website. But it should be bikeleague.org on our homepage tomorrow sometime at the latest. Um, so
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
back to the nitty gritty. A question from Anna. Nellie, have you had any success with infrastructure issues and how that disproportionately affects women?
Mm. Well, the studies are out there that show that women prefer dedicated bike infrastructure. I don't have any concrete data here in DC that supports that. I know that the Women Bike created a big research toolkit, and statistics are there. So I don't think I can concretely answer your question concretely. But I I don't I think well, actually, will you say the question again? I want to make sure that I don't have an answer for it.
Yeah, I think it's getting to the crux of there have been studies that show that um, some women are less eager to ride if there is not some sort of bike infrastructure in place. And I'm happy to sort of post what data we have pulled together in our Women on a Roll report in that follow-up blog for you all to sort of dig in deeper. I don't want to sort of misrepresent anything, but I think that's the basic question is, have you had any success with infrastructure issues and how that disproportionately affects women?
Well, I guess anecdotally, I could talk about our meetups, the role model dinner parties. We spend quite a bit of time talking about just getting out on the trail and feeling comfortable with the trail, and then selecting a route that has bike lanes, and then, you know, the benefits of having dedicated bike infrastructure alongside pedestrian and auto infrastructure. So that anecdotally does come up quite a bit, and it's, hey, I'm new at this. I want to do something that I feel most comfortable in, and for me, that's being on a trail or bike lane or a cycle track. So I guess anecdotally, I can completely confirm that.
Cool. Sounds good. Um, so we also have a question about classes or sessions from Ellen. She said, for those of us wanting to lead classes or sessions, where can we find curriculum? How much is dependent on the experience of the session leader?
First question, curriculum. In my experience, I didn't want to find other curriculum. I wanted to make my own, and for me, that was setting aside a couple hours the week before the class or session or workshop and putting together a handout and making sure that the information that I was sharing is accurate and that I was that I could be the expert in the room that I wanted to be. So, for example, we did a workshop on shifting, and I made sure, and this, I must say that this program has made me become so much more expert in these aspects of bicycling that I could ever imagine. So I have learned exactly how derailleurs work, which is fabulous. So I created my own curriculum. For those of you who want to seek that out, I'm sure it exists. I just wanted to have control over that because I wanted to be able to present information that for me that worked for my presentation style and the way that I learn, which is visually and hands-on and with repetition. So I would recommend doing some research. Liz, do you all have curriculum available?
Yeah, so the league, not women specific per se, or targeted toward a women's initiative, bike initiative, but the league does have a education curriculum that is pretty extensive and is actually undergoing sort of a revamp as we speak. So if you're looking for the basics, we definitely have a full curriculum, and we also certify cycling instructors as well. So I'd recommend, if you're curious, getting in touch with your local league cycling instructor for more information on that. And that's something else
Okay.
I'm happy to link to. But
Yeah, we've got so many action items for you, Liz.
I know, taking them down. It's great. We're hitting all the programs. That's wonderful.
Well, if you're looking at your screen now, I do have one of our templates up, and it's the workshop that I referenced on derailleurs. So I kept it really simple. I articulated what I wanted people to leave the room knowing, and for me, I had a very simple visual. And during the class, I had a bike up, and it was getting people to play around and tinker with the way that derailleurs work. Also, videos are really helpful, and that's another thing that you could look to, and that's the world of YouTube. You could link to YouTube's videos in your presentation.
Mm-hmm.
I think you had a follow-up question about experience level and who should be the one to take on different classes and sessions. For me, I know that I'm really uncomfortable talking about something that I'm not completely familiar with. So if there's someone in your network who would take on ride class or like how to show up to work, and I guess a pedaling professionally class, how to show up to work and change from your bike clothes into your professional clothes, like make sure to get someone who's most familiar with the workshop material.
Cool. Yeah, and definitely a plug again for the toolkit. There's everything pretty much in there that you'd need in terms of templates and checklists and stuff like that. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for that. We have about 5 minutes left, so I think we'll make this the last question. And I think this is coming from Cassandra, which I think is great, kind of getting to the community aspect of this type of work. Do you find, Nellie, you get support from local bike shops, or do you get inquiries from members about shops that are women friendly? Um,
Yeah. Oh,
Sorry, that was it.
was that it?
Yeah, she had
Okay.
a quick.
Yeah, yeah. Bike shops have been.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh, the bike shops in the area have been really helpful. Who have come out of the woodwork um, to participate in the program. I didn't go out of my way to reach out to bike shops. In fact, as a bike advocacy organization with over 100 shops in the region, we need to be as egalitarian as possible. So I didn't want to pursue individual shops. Um, I wanted to let shops come to us, if that makes sense, out of fairness. But we do have a couple women's owned shops who participated this year, and one of my favorite role model stories is Lori. Lori Lemieux, who owns a shop just outside of DC. She became a role model. She hosted her bike dinner party meetup in her shop, and then she created a women's initiative or a micro local women's group out of her shop. So they meet at least once or twice a month, and they do yoga and biking rides. They have potlucks, they have workshops, and it's all out of her shop. So it's so mutually beneficial. You know, we're both helping each other get women out on bikes, and I'm able to refer people to her shop who live in that area. Um, and I, I mentioned this meeting that I'm holding this Saturday with stakeholders throughout the region. I was definitely sure to invite shops who are either owned by women or have a clear focus on getting more women out riding. Um, but I think the next step would be to work with shops who could use the feedback and could use the involvement and benefit from learning about our program so that they could make their shop more women friendly or people friendly. I think that the next phase will be to encourage shops to listen to some of the participant feedback um, about how to get more women on bikes.
Awesome. Thank you, Nellie. So I think we're at about time. Nellie, if you don't mind switching to the last slide really quickly so I can run down a quick list.
Oh, yeah.
So before anything, I just want to say a big hearty thank you to Nellie for presenting today. I feel like I've learned a lot in the past hour, and I'm very excited for your toolkit to hit the World Wide Web and be spread far and wide. Because I think what you're doing at WABA is just tremendous, and I hope to see it replicated all across the country. So thank you for all you're doing, Nellie. And to staying engaged to this work, if you want to get involved with a women bike program at the League, you have quite a few different ways to do that. We also have an e-newsletter. You can sign up on our website. We also have an online community on Twitter and Facebook. We use the hashtag WomenBike primarily, and also on the blog. We have a smattering of different things that are going on at the League, but definitely including what's going on at Women Bike. And we also have 3 very exciting things coming up in the next week. I just wanted to relay that the Women Bike mini grants, the newest round, the information on how to apply will be coming out next week. Also next week, we'll have a report on how to host a women's forum in your state or in your community. And we have one more very exciting announcement that I am not at liberty to relay just yet, but please stay tuned and plugged in to our larger Women Bike Network to catch up on what that might be. So I will leave it at that. And once again, thank you so much to Nellie and to WABA and to all of you for tuning in today. Until next time, thanks again.